All right, guys, welcome to Hanging Out with Hamza. Today I'm in New York with the lovely Katie Duke. She is a nurse practitioner practicing in New York right now. She has a long list of achievements behind her, as well as being an advocate for women and nurses in general. So stay tuned and thanks for listening.
Let's get into the shit!
Hey y'all, this is Hamza, and I'm super happy we get to hang out for a little bit.
All right, thanks for coming to hang out with me, Katie. Let's get started. So I gave a brief introduction about you, and I'm going to pass it on to you to kind of fill in any holes that I missed out on.
No pressure. Well, I would say thank you for having me, but you're in New York. You're in my city, so you're welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Yeah. So I'm always excited when people come to New York because the energy here is just different. My name is Katie Duke. I am a nurse practitioner. I have been a nurse for just about 20 years and a nurse practitioner for the last 8. I do practice full time. I work with a health tech startup here in New York. And I also have a whole other second and third career of being a social media creator and an advocate for not only just nursing, but healthcare professionals in general. Over the last 10 years of my career, I have pioneered a lot of things that I'm very proud of. I was the very first ever nurse influencer. I was actually the very first healthcare influencer on social media. And I started doing that in 2013 when Instagram had that really ugly brown logo.
Yeah.
And I realized that there was a big void out there in the space where healthcare providers outside of just physicians, you know, they were the only people who were ever in the media. And I realized that there's a big void out there because we need to see more women. We need to see more nursing representation. So I had an opportunity from a TV show I was on called New York Med. It was a primetime series on ABC. It aired for 2 seasons. And that kind of threw an opportunity into my lap that I wasn't really expecting, but I seized that for all the good things that I could out of it. And what that did was that thrust me into a media spotlight, and it really gave me a strong catalyst to kind of start this brand new thing called social media, because in 2013, 2014, it was still like very new to a lot of people.
Right.
There were no brand pages. There were not like organized social and creative campaigns. There weren't like ambassador teams. There was not social media policies in hospitals, but I knew that it was a really good platform to speak up for what the average nurse and healthcare professional go through on just a regular shift. So I started sharing my stories about what it was like being an ER nurse in New York City. And over time, that started growing into other opportunities, such as speaking at nursing schools, which, funny story, Christian and I met in 2017 or 2016. So it was 2017. I was actually retained as a speaker to come and speak at his, was it the organization or the nursing school?
It was Rockford University.
Rockford University, yep.
It's not my school, but I saw you were speaking there, and I was like,
yeah, you were there. But I started doing I started having a lot of opportunities come into my plate that I really enjoyed and I took a lot of pride in. I love speaking. I love being able to be an impactful person. And so I really decided that back then that I wanted to make this into sort of a second career. And over time, it really grew into, what it is now. And over the last 10 years, I have worked with over 200 brands on very impactful social media and brand campaigns. I have a full-time job as a creator and an influencer. I have had a podcast. I've done stand-up shows. I have been featured in articles from the New York Times to the Washington Post to Marie Claire, Harper's Bazaar. I've had a lot of really great opportunities, and something that I'm very proud of is that it's been a very relatable and authentic and transparent road.
Yeah.
Because I've done a lot of dumb shit and I've made a lot of bad decisions. And I've always been real in speaking openly about those. And that's something that's really important to me because I think we need a little more normalcy and relatability, especially in this clouded fake world of social media. So that kind of, pushed me into the pillars of the things that I talk about now, which is transparent conversations about real life things and real professional career concerns, and being an advocate for our profession and a speaker, and just being somebody that can sort of be a lightning rod for the things that need to be said publicly, but not everyone can speak out publicly.
Yeah.
That was a really long intro.
No, that's amazing. I mean,
So,
that's a pretty great.
like,
No, that's an awesome background, and you have so much under your sleeve, and that's what I was talking to Xy before doing this, because I like to get a little bit of a background of the person I'm speaking to, and you're the one guest I've had now where I'm just like, I don't even know where to begin with her. She has so much.
He's trying to say I'm old.
No, you just have so much accomplishments, and I don't even know where to start. But I definitely want to start from the origin of your social media presence, which I think it's a big part of a lot of our lives, especially with being in healthcare and trying to be like an influencer in healthcare.
It's how we all met in this room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's such a niche market. And we talked about this at breakfast before we did this podcast about how it's so hard, because sometimes you meet somebody through social media, especially in this healthcare world. It's so small that we all connect. But then when you meet people in person, sometimes they're not as they seem online. There's a very big
They're
contrast.
fucking fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Let's just call it what it is.
I think that's how Katie and I kind of really connected, because, we felt like we were the same person that we met online, and the presence we shared together online versus in person was very similar. And that's something I really admired and loved about Katie, is she's been a no bullshit person from the time I met her. And obviously she's been a big advocate for that, and being completely transparent and honest in all of her success and her failures. So with that being said, I wanted to go back to your origin about this whole social media presence. Obviously, because you started so early in your career before all of this, how did you have that foresight that this was going to be the form of social media? Because at the time, Facebook was probably more popular, and I felt
everyone was on Facebook.
Yeah. So what gave you that? Did you know that Instagram was going to be the thing, or did you just kind of go along just like having fun with it, and then it just fell into place? Or
I had no idea, truthfully, and I didn't have much direction back then. I didn't know what it was going to become in 5 years, 10 years. I didn't really have like a specific like goal or a plan with it as far as like long-term shit.
Yeah.
But what I did know is that this is where people can come to learn about what life is like as a healthcare professional and a nurse. And this is where we can share stories. And I always use the example of, if you're a little kid and you want to like play basketball, where do you go? You can watch TV and you can watch Kobe and the Lakers. You can go to a basketball camp. You can read books. You can watch movies. You can go to all of these different avenues. But if you want to be a healthcare provider, where the fuck do you go if you don't know somebody?
Yeah.
Like, we don't have anybody out there who's in that spotlight who can help encourage and mentor people coming up. So that was sort of like the initial driving force, in addition to, just sharing stories about what life was like. Working in a level 1 trauma center in the emergency room in New York City.
Was this before Twitter too? Was Twitter?
No, Twitter was around then also. And Twitter was the first platform that I was really active on.
Yeah, because I feel like that was a big thing.
Yeah, and I was hosting like giveaways on Twitter and like Twitter After Dark, like in 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was like, it was just such a small niche of people. It was just a small group of people. But I never really intended it for for it to kind of grow into what it has today. But I knew along the way that I could make something more tangible out of this. And I knew that I could do something with this that would, give me more opportunities, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be in a hospital for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's not a good place for me. It's not a good place for a lot of people, but oftentimes we kind of get pigeonholed and have this tunnel pipeline to like, you have to work in the hospital. So I saw, especially as brands started paying me, I was like, oh, this could like be something else, and I could make something out of this, in addition to it being a good example for other people that need someone to look up to or a resource.
Yeah. And I do want to get into that, you advocating for nurses, because obviously with the current climate, I feel like you've been doing this from the start, before this was even like a big issue now.
Before it was a thing.
Yeah. So going from that social media presence that you developed, is that how you kind of got into the NY Med TV show? Did they reach out to you because of that, or did you just apply to it? Like, what was the origin behind that?
No. In fact, all that came first.
Oh, okay.
So
did that after.
I was working as an ER nurse, and I worked at New York Presbyterian Cornell, which is one of the top hospitals in New York, one of the top hospitals in the country. And ABC and New York Presbyterian partnered together to do a primetime documentary series, a medical documentary series. So they chose 3 nurses from the emergency room to follow as characters for the show.
Three of the most badass nurses.
And we were all very different.
Yeah.
We were all very different. But we all had different stories, different backgrounds. And I think one of the things that they liked about me was that I had a story, but I was also, again, just very brutally honest and open, just an open book and talking about the things that need to be talked about. So I got chosen for the show. So that show aired on ABC, like 6 to 8 million people would watch each episode. And so that is how I got my first, group of followers and audience on social media, because I had an Instagram page, I had a Twitter page, and the hospital encouraged us to talk about the show, post about the show, and it was something that I was excited about. And so that was the first thing. That was what started all of it.
And then, with that being said, you were let go on the show. Do you want to go further into what happened during that period of time and how that kind of transitioned you to other things that led from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like beating a dead horse at the end of the day. Like it's something that back then was monumental, but I look back at it now and I'm like,
Happens.
Like it happens, it does. But 10 years ago, again, I was on the show and I was off work, and one of my friends, who was the chief resident at the time, he posted a picture of an empty trauma room on his Instagram page, and there was a big case that had came in earlier, like that week. And it was all over the news. It was all over they were filming it for the TV show also. And it was a guy that got hit by a train and survived, which is just impossible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. You don't survive traumatic arrests. You also don't survive traumatic arrests by any subway train for that matter. So it was a huge deal. And he had that case, and that patient made it up to the OR, and everyone was talking about it. So he posted this picture of the empty trauma room from after the trauma. And I was like, wow, that's a really dope photo. Can I repost this? And I screenshotted it and I posted it on my page a week later. And I had gotten called into I was working, this was again 2 weeks had passed. I was working and I got called into my director's office, and my director, who he and I had problems for a while. Ever since they started filming the TV show, he and I had problems. There was a lot of people that changed how they treated me when the TV cameras were around, because there was a lot of jealousy, there was a lot of envy, there was a lot of bad attitudes, there was a lot of people that didn't like the fact that there was filming going on.
You were just under a magnifying glass.
Yeah. But I was still the same nurse and the same person. I was charge nurse. I was triage nurse. I precepted so many people who were coming through there. I was involved in committees. I had all these accolades, and this, people just started treating me differently because the cameras were there, or because they were jealous that they weren't on the show. But I had nothing to do with that. Yeah. So my manager and I, we had a very tumultuous relationship. So he called me in at the end of my shift one day, and he's like, it's really unfortunate because you've been such a great nurse during all of your years here. But Katie, you're just trying to do too much. You're trying to be the next Dr. Oz. You're trying to have this big voice in the media, and you're just a nurse. No one cares what you have to say.
Wow.
And I don't want you here anymore. I want people who are going to come here, be a nurse, and go home. You're trying to do too much, and I'm going to let you go. And, and he's like, but we're going to report to human resources that we're firing you over this photo you posted because we feel it's insensitive. And I was like, well, are you going to fire the chief resident who posted it too? And he's like, that's none of my concern. Anyway, long story short, there's a lot more that happened in that situation, but I was let go from a job after 7 years. It upended my entire life. I was like, my whole world is over. I was in grad school at the time, going to Columbia, getting portions of my student loans paid. I had to pay back. And then I was I had no insurance. Everything was dropped the next morning. And I was just like, what the fuck? Luckily I had a per diem job at Lenox Hill Hospital. So I just picked up some hours there, but I really realized damn, these people will just throw nurses away.
Yeah.
You're going to throw away one of the most seasoned nurses in your emergency room. This doesn't make any fucking sense. Yeah. That was really what kind of pushed me to talk about moments like that, because I guarantee it happens to so many people. I mean, how many people know someone who's been fired over bullshit?
Yeah.
So many of us. So that was that. But I learned a very valuable lesson. I also learned that if you're going to step out in the public eye and be this public figure, you also need to like watch the things that you post, because not everybody speaks ER nurse language.
Yeah. Being in this kind of public space, and I talked to this about Allie in the last episode, that with you being on a magnifying glass, anything you do, whether it's a minuscule thing like your situation, you're just like, you have to be extra careful and extra vigilant about that. And that's why, for the listeners of this, I think, a lot of them probably don't know like why you got let go. And that's why I wanted to bring that up, because it does exemplify how you didn't really do anything wrong. You made an innocent, you took an innocent action that they held you accountable for, that wasn't honestly like anything more than just.
But now that's the normal. I mean,
yeah.
Look at what people post nowadays. Like, it also just goes to show you the growth of what's acceptable and considered sensitive or insensitive on social media. Because back when that happened, no one was doing that. It wasn't the normal. It wasn't the status quo. But now, it is. And now hospitals have social media policies, and people know, so much more about it. But back then, people were like, what is this?
Yeah. And then I guess when you were let go and you did go through that situation, I feel like, I went through a similar thing recently, and you look at it in the moment, you kind of panic and you kind of think like, oh, my life's like uprooted. But ultimately looking back, I'm sure you can appreciate how it's kind of set you on this entirely different path now. And even being an advocate, do you feel like that moment is what made you really want to advocate for nurses and nurses' rights based on that whole interaction?
Yeah, because we're fucking disposable. And it's partially because we're not valued by the hospital. We are a cost. We're a line item. We are not a revenue generating service, even though we are the most used service across hospitals in the United States. Yeah. More than physician services, surgery services, say that 10 times fast, more than ambulatory care, like all of it. And we are just so disposable. And we are in a very punitive culture that is the nursing culture, that also is the healthcare administrative culture and how they treat nurses. So that was really like the thing that was like, oh, you have to keep doing this because this happens to people all the time. Yeah. But there just wasn't anybody going out there and speaking up about the things that affect nurses. And, there's obviously a lot more people who are doing it nowadays, but it was hard to do it back then because people looked at me and they're like, why are you doing all this? Like, this isn't going to amount to shit.
It's probably a fear-based thing too, because in order for somebody to speak out, that would mean their job's on the line, and you already went through that. So at that point, you're probably like at a I don't give a fuck situation, and like people unfortunately have a lot to lose when they do that, but you have to take that first scary step.
Yeah.
So going into that, in terms of your advocacy, is there anything like in particular that you do right now that I know you had that recent New York Times article or Washington Post article? Do you want to speak more on that? And kind of, I'll add the link in the bio, guys, for you to read about. But what was the main kind of drive behind your article and what you wanted to talk about?
So the journalist, her name is Jennifer Miller, Jen Miller. She initially reached out to me in 2022, like the beginning of 2022. I had just done 2 stand-up shows for my Bad Decisions
which I can't wait podcast. To talk about. That's so awesome you did.
And it was pretty awesome. It was a sold-out show. It was awesome. Honestly, it was one of the best nights of my life. But she had reached out to me after that, and I was like, we are just kind of going back and forth, and she's like, I just want to know a little more about like what you do, because I've been doing a lot of research and we've been doing a lot of articles with influencers and the creator industry and how it's just changing the marketing world, and it's also changing how people connect with each other and brands, and also job opportunities for people. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. She's like, but I don't understand how a nursing professional can work in the creator industry. Like, it was like a whole... And I'm like, the same way a fashion blogger would. And she's like, but you're a nurse practitioner. And I'm like, but I know. It was just this very foreign concept. And I said, there's actually a lot of opportunities for healthcare providers online and on social media. My niche areas just happen to be, I do a lot of creator work with brands and I make great money from that. But I also do a lot of advocacy. And it's actually gotten me into a lot of shit at my employers. And I said, that's what I really want to talk to you about. She's like, well, what's happened? And I said, oh, come have a seat. And we started talking, and I told her, I said, I have been fired from jobs for this. I have been not rehired back to a very good job that I left in good standing with excellent references in less than a year. And I have emails from chief nursing officers stating that Katie, we feel that Katie is an unprofessional representation of nurses on social media. And we feel that Katie portrays the sexy nurse, and that's not the image we want. Or Katie uses her voice in a way that doesn't fit our narrative. And I have lost travel contracts. I have so many job opportunities because of the punitive culture that is healthcare and nursing. And when I started telling her these things and sharing these stories, she was flabbergasted. She's like, this is all out there?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. And I said, in fact, it's not just me. I'm just the one who's talking about it. Not everybody feels comfortable sharing those things. And I'll never pressure anybody to go out there and share your story and own your truth. But me, that's my thing. That's what I do. That's what people expect from me. And that's, what they can get from me is they can get a real, honest, relatable moment and experiences and lessons that I've learned. And so the base of the article is the hospital, the nurse that no hospital will hire. And it sounds like the worst title, but trust me, my my has been a nurse for 60 years.
Yeah.
When she got the email, check out this article, Mom, I'm in the Washington Post. She's like, Catherine Elizabeth, the nurse no hospital will hire? What are my friends going to think? And I mean, I don't even think she read the article for 2 weeks until I actually sent her a hard copy. But she was like, what is this? And I said, well, it's kind of the truth.
Yeah.
Hospitals love to control the narrative of how nursing professionals and healthcare professionals speak up about their experiences, about our ratios, about our patient safety, about bullying, about racism, about hazing, about punitive culture, about lateral violence, unsafe workplaces, pay inequity. I could go on.
Yeah.
But all of those things are the shit that I'm talking about. And it has served me in one way and not served me in other ways.
Right.
So the basis of the article is about that. And she did a deep dive into my life. I mean, she interviewed my family. She interviewed my mentors. She interviewed my college professors. She tried to interview people who had fired me, but of course they declined to comment on everything. She interviewed my travel nursing agency. She interviewed people from my social media audience who I've mentored over the years, who've now started their own businesses. Because that's another thing that I've done that I'm also very that I love doing. I love helping people really hone in and take a leap to try something different. And I think that the more that you grow and you have more opportunities, you owe it to the other people in your community to help bring them up along.
Right.
And this is something I always say, and something that she and I talked about is when you're in a room with people, speak the names of your friends. Put your other people on.
Right.
Put your friends on. Put people on. When you're in a room with people who can make or break or create an opportunity, who do you talk about? Who do you promote?
Yeah.
Whose name do you share when you're in those rooms? And I think that's something that social media has really given us a great opportunity to do as well. So the article touches on all of that. And she was really she's man, she honestly had a hard time pitching the article at first. It took a good 7-8 months for the Washington Post to really come around. And then they ended up putting it on the front page above the fold of the style section.
That's amazing.
And then it has the entire back page. And that's a big deal. If you know a lot about journalism, you know that there are some publications that you cannot buy your way into.
Yeah.
You can't buy your way into that. But to have something resonate with a journalist and then have it resonate with the editor and have them be the story's really intriguing, that's a big honor. And so that article, has been a really strong piece in my career that I'm very proud of. And if I was still working at the hospital, I would have not been able to do any of that.
Yeah.
And goes to show you how fucked up it is.
Yeah. You brought up, being a nurse that's speaks up on things too. I think add to that, you're a female, and I think being in the healthcare industry, being a strong female with an opinion is also like
Me?
a double-edged sword because I mean, I spoke to Allie, and the funny thing is, she mentioned how people will often call you like a bitch or like, say that, oh, she's like mean or unapproachable and stuff. And it's just because you're a female speaking up for herself.
Yeah.
And like being a nurse plus that, automatically has like these hospital systems and people like afraid to hire you and have you in their field because you just stand up for yourself, which is unfortunately not something that.
Yeah. And then imagine standing up for an entire profession. Like no one's going to want to fucking hire you. I'm pretty sure I'm DNR'd from every hospital in the country at this point.
I want to address to the listeners, she did this before COVID. So before, standing up for nurses was considered cool, I guess. Like she's done it before, like all of this was brought to light. And
since 2013.
Yeah. And you just basically kind of spoke about the same things that are only being brought up now, and I think that's incredible that you put your entire life and career at risk to do this stuff, and COVID, if anything, just kind of brought it more magnification to it.
Yeah, it brought more people to the table to have the conversation.
To have that
conversation. But now everybody's an advocate. Now everybody is speaking up. Now everybody is, has a platform, and I love to see, those numbers.
Yeah.
I wish it was like that,
throughout the time.
Years ago, because sometimes it was tough.
Even with that being said, there are people that advocate or talk about it, but they don't actually act on it. And that's another thing. It's like you not only have been talking about it, but have acted on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So leading into that, I mean, your advocacy is like, pretty incredible. And, I'm learning a lot along the way with this. And that's why I wanted you on the podcast, because there's so much I've heard about you through secondhand experience, through my best friend, Xy, being a nurse.
Don't believe any of it.
In the community. I mean, he mostly talks shit about you, but the nice stuff, the 2% stuff is really nice. But I mean, going into that, I definitely want to, this is a passion project podcast. So there's a lot of stuff I know you're passionate about. I wanted to talk about, firstly, your cooking, and for selfish reasons, I want to know more about stand-up because I love comedy and I love stand-up comedy, and to know that you took that leap of faith into that is incredible. So I want to know more about how you got into that, what you talk about in there, and what your tour consisted of.
So it all started with my podcast. So I had a podcast for two and a half years called Bad Decisions. And that's kind of what I'm known for, making bad decisions and speaking openly about them. So my management team one day is like, Katie, we think that you should really consider doing a podcast. I mean, a stand-up show based on your podcast. And I'm like, are you trying to get me DNR'd from every employer in the nation? I'm like, why would I do that? I was still like doing like travel jobs and whatnot at the time. And I'm like, a stand-up show? And they're like, well, like, look at you as a person, right? You have always been a very powerful speaker. One thing I'm very good at, I'm very good at public speaking. I'm really good at giving talks, motivating a crowd. That's something, we all have that thing that we're really good at. And I was really good, with talking openly about the dumb shit that I've done and advocating. And so we decided to do this crazy thing and take my podcast and sort of spin it and turn it into a stand-up show. So we hired a comedy writer here from New York who I worked with for about like 5 or 6 months. And during our exchanges, I was talking about, so here's the things that I want to talk about. We were fresh off of COVID. I wanted to talk about Trump. I wanted to talk about, the shit that hospitals put all of us through. I wanted to talk about us getting rocks for Nurses Week. I wanted to talk about how we're disposable. I wanted to talk about how I literally got hauled out of the hospital in the middle of COVID by a security guard because the CEO found out I was working there and got rid of me. I wanted to talk about all these things, but I wanted to do it in a lighthearted way to bring people together to make them laugh.
Right.
So my team, we then hired and started working with a touring company, and a touring company is who takes care of all the logistics of things as far as venues, ticket sales, sound, special effects, lighting. And we hired an illustrator and an animator, and we created an entire animated series that was playing on the big screen behind me. And it was an hour show. Ended up being 90 minutes. Yeah. And what I did one show in New York and one show in LA, and I found a local creator who I could partner with and put on with me. So for my New York show, Jackie, who's actually a Figs ambassador, but she also owns Riot Healers.
Yeah.
She does some amazing graphic art design that
awesome.
I fucking love. So I had her design all of the merch, and then I had her help me with my opening in New York. And then in LA, one of my good friends, Dr. James Simmons, who's also known as Ask the NP on Instagram. He is a brown LGBTQ member, and he is somebody who I really respect. And again, going back to the like, put your friends on and put other people on as you come up kind of mentality. And the shows were like, standing room, like people, I mean, I really think it was like one of like the best nights of my life. And I felt very natural, but like I was rehearsing for like 5 months. Like I was rehearsing, I couldn't memorize all my fucking lines, but I had a teleprompter, thank God. But, putting on a whole show and doing a stand-up and like being like, please let people laugh at my fucking jokes, because there is nothing worse than being on stage and the room is silent.
Yeah.
That is actually a whole, like, full-fledged nightmare. And those 2 shows were such a success. And they're like, I think that we should do some more cities. And I ended up going to start to launch new cities. And I had just started a crisis contract at the same time. And my agency was like, we can't get you off any of these days. And I had to push back the second leg of the tour. And we're going to hopefully try to relaunch it again this fall and do just a few cities. But the Bad Decisions tour, like doing stand-up comedy was like, it was very exhilarating.
Yeah.
But I think people just needed to come out and hear someone who they, can relate to trash hospital administration.
Yeah. I think that's the best.
That was it.
That's the best thing about
that was it.
comedy is great in that it can present such important topics in such a digestible format. And
Yeah.
I think that's why, Dave Chappelle and so many of these comedians are highly regarded, because they take such heavy topics and break it down into a format that you're able to not only like laugh at, but understand like the importance of it. And it's you hit a larger audience with that. Like I'm sure you had a lot of people that aren't in healthcare or don't know anything about what's going on, and they learn maybe just from what they're going through.
Well, I mean, people listen to my podcast maybe who aren't in health. It's not a healthcare podcast, but for the show, it was all healthcare providers.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like Shelley Rockwell flew in from fucking Tulsa, like to go to the show. Danielle Levesque came in from Columbus. Like people were flying in. I mean, it was really, it was such a special night.
Yeah.
I just, like, you had to be there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to do another. Yeah, I have it recorded.
Okay.
I'm happy to send it to you.
Okay. Yeah. And then
you just can't redistribute that
I
or
won't-
sell it on the black market.
I was going to say, if you did have it, I could have shared it on the bio for people to look at.
Oh, no,
whenever
it's not.
available.
Yeah,
San
no.
Francisco.
It's not. I don't know if I have any audience in San Francisco other than you,
Yeah.
Xy.
I'm sure we could get a collection in San Francisco
but-
and Austin.
So right now we are just trying to configure what cities do we want to do shows in again and when, but I'm thinking it's going to be for the fall. And honestly, like I'm nervous. It's a lot of pressure to sell tickets.
Yeah.
It is a lot of pressure to sell tickets, but I have been doing events for years, and I started doing like mentoring events and workshops in 2016 and 2017. In addition to doing like speaking at academic conference, seminars, universities, giving keynotes, and selling tickets to your own show is the paramount of pressure.
Yeah,
like,
I can't imagine.
and it gives me 10 out of 10 anxiety.
Yeah.
So right now I'm having anxiety about no one's going to come to the show. No one's going to buy these fucking tickets like for 8 months from now.
Yeah.
It's kind of terrifying, but I just hope if you're listening,
I can
come to the show.
that you have at least 3 people in this room that are going to show up to your show. So
Yeah. Would you guys fly to New York though? If I did,
Yeah,
if
honestly,
I only did New York shows.
when I remember when I saw it, I didn't know you well enough at the time. Like I didn't even meet you yet.
we hadn't
so,
met because we hadn't had the retreat
so I was
yet.
like,
Yeah.
this is so dope. This random nurse through Figs. Obviously, I know her through Figs. I was just like, this is so sick. She's doing stand up and like she's a nurse and she's doing all this stuff. But I didn't know you well enough, so I didn't want to just be like, hey, let me just come to a random show. It was in New York, so it was a big thing to do. But I would for sure come if you do the next show.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be New York and probably New York and then maybe
Austin.
I think
San Francisco or Sacramento?
pretty sure I don't have any Texas
Hey,
people
Austin
except for like
has
you.
a great
but
stand-up comedy scene. So.
I know that New York, and then I'm thinking
Chicago?
probably Chicago.
Yeah.
And then something on the West Coast maybe.
Okay.
You might have to come to LA.
Yeah.
Xy.
I think we
Yeah.
can definitely do that. So going into your other passion, which is cooking, is that something that you've always been into, or something you kind of developed over time?
Well, my first semester of college, I was in a culinary program.
Okay.
So like I've always loved cooking. I love food. I love and appreciate the thought and the skill and just everything that goes into a meal and what people do when they break bread together. I love that. My boyfriend Sean, when we first met, our first date, we went to Anthony Bourdain's favorite taco place in Philly because I was like, they have this phenomenal barbacoa tacos here. And he's like, so you really appreciate food stuff. And like, we like immediately connected. And it's just something that brings me joy. And like, I'm the girl who always brings like 10 things in for the potluck. And yes, I eat potlucks. I will continue to eat work potlucks. I am not anti-potlucks. I don't give a shit. Everyone just wash their hands and no double dipping.
Is there
But,
a big discrimination against potluck?
Yo, there's people these days who are like, I'll never eat another potluck again.
Oh, really?
Is it you?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn.
Absolutely
Okay,
not.
all right.
I
was about
will
to
eat a
say.
double dip.
Thank you. Okay, good. But I enjoy food. I love food. It brings me, like I love baking. I mean, but I didn't pursue the culinary program because I was like,
I was gonna say, I'm surprised
I
you haven't
don't
done a
think-
cooking show yet or something.
So Sean and I, we did a cooking class.
Yeah.
We did one on Zoom. We had like 20 people at it. This was last year, and it was a lot of fun. But like, it's a lot of work.
Okay.
And truthfully, I am 41, and I just don't have time and money to put into things that are not going to like bring me income
Yeah.
or bring me like peace of mind.
Yeah.
And I just, I don't want to be a food blogger. I don't want to be, a chef host. So, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But, it's something that I always love. Like this weekend, we're making homemade cheese sticks on Sunday. So like we got some really good, like USDA prime, like ribeye that we sliced from Costco. And then we got like the right onions, and I'm going to make a homemade French loaf, and we got Cheese Whiz. Yes, the Cheese Whiz in the jar, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm wondering why.
The only cheese that matters in a cheese.
The only cheese that matters outside of Velveeta. You're welcome.
I think next time we come, we need to go have like a full-on course meal with you.
Listen,
Try your stuff.
I would happily prepare.
Yeah, we just recently.
I'll
before-
join you in the kitchen.
Yeah. Before,
Yeah, you always make good stuff.
Before doing this podcast, we went to Jack and his wife Frida for brunch, and it was really good.
Jack's wife, Frida.
Jack's wife
Yeah.
Frida. Yeah.
Jack and his wife.
Yeah.
They had us over to their townhome
Made
in Dumbo.
Yeah. But so going from that into your third passion, New York, what got you so in love with the city? What made you move to the city? What's like your history with the city?
So I was born and raised in St. Louis, Missouri. That's why I'm so hospitable.
Right.
I have that Midwest hospitality.
Yeah.
That's where my y'alls come from, because y'all is not a New York thing.
Is the New York attitude a real thing? Is that still a thing?
Oh
Or is
yeah,
that- okay.
yeah. Get the fuck out of here. It
Okay.
it 1000% is. But there's a lot of things that are very like New York. But I moved up here because I took a travel nursing job, and I just never left. I moved up here and I was like, this is where I need to be. This is my kind of place. And I really just like fell in love with
What
it.
drew you to the city? Was it the architecture? Was it the people? Was it anything in particular that really kind of drew you in?
Honestly, I just wanted to experience something totally opposite from what I had known, which is St. Louis.
Right.
And it doesn't get more opposite than New
Yeah.
York. But I think over the years, there have been a lot of things about New York that grows on me. And truthfully, the city will turn you into the person that you're meant to be if you'll let it. And a lot of people might not understand that. But if you move here and if you put yourself in those rooms, or if you allow the city to push you to take those big, crazy leaps and go into these areas that, you know, are kind of risky, you can really accomplish a lot here. Because like this is where the world comes to get shit done.
Yeah.
You know, and there's so many great opportunities here that you just can't get in other cities. And also, like, this is the cuisine capital of the world.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much good food in New York.
I
Like-
mean, everything, the fashion, the food.
I mean,
it's
just all of it.
the
Like,
hub.
I like wish I could go back in time and be like someone who works for like Vogue in the fashion industry and experience that side of New York, but that's just not me. I wear the same shit every day. I'm from very humble, like working class beginnings, and I'm gonna be that for my entire life.
You still
But
wear
what
cool
I do
shit,
appreciate, I mean, I have cool sneakers, but I do appreciate all the phenomenal food that is here. Like, and that's something that, again, like you can get some great food in other cities,
Yeah.
but there's like Michelin stars. I mean, in every neighborhood in this city, but there's also some phenomenal bodegas where you can go get a chopped cheese.
Yeah.
Like, you just can't beat that.
Okay. And then going off that, what would you say to anybody coming to New York if you were to recommend 3 restaurants that you would want them to try?
Fuck.
Gotta put you in that position.
This is bad. I have the hardest time with this.
Off the top of your head.
Shit.
No pressure.
God. Okay, so for a burger, I would go to Pastis in the meatpacking district.
Okay.
For a bone-in ribeye, I would go to Porterhouse in the Time Warner building. For, what are you saying over there? I think our peanut gallery is talking shit.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll take the meatpacking district.
I'll take the, Xy will take the meatpacking district for $100, Alex.
For $800.
$800.
Meatpacking
No,
district.
he's on sale this weekend for $100. Okay, and then
Who is
I
a tube
think
steak?
for Jesus. Fuck.
What's like
So another really phenomenal experience is the Modern. It's a Danny Meyer restaurant and it's in the MoMA.
Okay.
Sean actually took me here a few weeks ago. You'll pay $500 for lunch.
Okay.
However, you will be there for 3 hours and you will have an experience that,
Is it like a
Well, like-
multiple course meal?
yeah, absolutely, yes. The service is sublime. The dishes, I mean, there's just so much that goes into it that you're
Yeah.
getting like with that.
You're not getting a plate with the one little pea on
Oh,
it
no,
for-
no.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Just
Blue
like-
Hill at Stone Barns.
Okay.
Also a phenomenon. I know this list
No,
is
no, no.
going on.
That's fine. It's because it's
Um,
more for all 3 or
I
listeners.
do love Gramercy Tavern, also, and God, there's just too many.
Yeah.
There's just too many.
But that's what I liked about meeting you and talking to you about New York, because you talk to some people and they just they have their little like wisdom about New York, but you have so much knowledge because you've been here for so long and you know the best sneaker stores, you know the best restaurants, and it's fun to talk to you about this stuff because it's like you get almost overwhelmed with how much
It is
how much
overwhelming, and I fucking live here.
Yeah, and
There's so much shit that I still haven't even seen.
yeah,
And I mean, and it's like, damn, like I just,
and I think that's
It's
like
tricky.
the thing is like your passion is literally just New York and everything
New
in
York.
it.
I
And,
just love New York.
yeah, I love that.
New York or nowhere.
Yeah, we just
See?
went to a store.
That's why I took you to that store, New
Yeah.
York or nowhere store.
Yeah, and Xy bought over $400 worth of stuff.
And
even
he
though-
said,
It's
I'm
just
not buying
higher and higher.
anything.
Yeah.
I'm not buying anything.
I basically was like, hey, Xy, are you
$1,000
taking anything with you? He's like, no, I'm not getting anything.
I'm not
here."
getting anything.
But yeah, okay, sneakers, I do want to talk about that because I love sneakers. I love the art behind it, the stories behind it.
Yeah.
And you have some of the dopest sneakers here. You're currently wearing off-whites, no big deal. But I'm
In a
big-
size 4.5.
Yeah.
So I saved some money on
Probably
because I
lucky
got
with
the
drops.
big kids.
Yeah, they like don't sell out as quickly because the 5-year-olds don't even have.
Yeah,
cell
they
phone
do.
yet.
But I still have never won on the sneakers app.
Oh really?
And this is something that I know Christian can relate
know-
to
do you-
because he's won one time.
Yeah.
And I still am like, how the fuck did you get that?
Do you guys know what I won recently? Just the one time.
They
What?
had
The only one time I won
What?
was the
The,
Lost and Founds. The Jordan 1 Lost and Founds,
Oh
and I was
my
just
God.
like, I thought it was a scam at
Such
first
a
because I got
cluster.
the accept and I was like, this is a fucking. I'm about to get ripped off by China or something.
Oh
But-
man.
Yeah, no. So if I were to, I'm a big list person, so I want to know like your favorite sneakers that you own right now and why you have such an attachment to them.
So my favorite sneakers that I own are my Jordan 4 Off-White Sales.
Okay. Because
Those
the design
I
or the
love
story behind
monochrome.
it? Okay.
So I love monochrome. I also love anything, like pretty much anything that Virgil did during his, career.
Yeah.
In fact, the only like nice purses that I have are like 2 Off-White bags.
Off-White,
Like
yeah.
I don't have Gucci, I don't have Louis, I don't have any of that stuff. I have Off-White shit.
And the reason you love it is
Um,
because of the designer himself and the story behind him.
I mean, I do. I like that he is like an unlikely story.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that's,
His path is
relatable.
incredible.
Yeah. And I also like that he broke a lot of barriers, which is something that I hope other people can see in him too. But
Yeah.
I think the Off-White Sales are my favorite pair because I love monochrome. But I got these leather laces to be custom made. So it matches the sneakers
That's
perfectly. And I didn't wear them today because I was like,
It's gonna rain.
if it's gonna rain later,
Yeah.
like you just can't chance it.
Yeah.
And these, I mean, like these, they could go out in the rain. It's no problem. They're actually like waterproof.
Yeah. Those are dope.
But yeah, those are my favorite sneakers.
What do you feel like you love like about sneakers? Because I feel like every sneakerhead has a different reason to why they're so attracted to it or some
Yeah.
purpose behind it.
I think for me, it's my accessory. I don't, as you can see, I don't wear jewelry.
Right.
I don't have, like any other accessory other than
So
like
that's
my
like
glasses or like my nails.
That's
so
your statement piece in your outfit.
yeah, but I also like shit that's comfortable. I don't like wearing heels.
Yeah.
I like shit that's comfortable. I've kind of always been like a tomboy. Like if I could wear sneakers to the event tonight, I really would.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it's my little statement piece.
I love that.
That's why I always switch the laces up. I always have like mismatched laces. And I'm on sneaker budget restriction right now. I haven't bought any in a long time.
Yeah.
But the pieces that I do have, I'm very happy with.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's how we originally connected because
Yeah.
you and I both had mochas when we were
Yeah.
at the retreat.
Yeah.
And we just started talking.
We were
about
on the
that stuff.
bus.
Yeah, we talked a lot about everything. But yeah, I feel like we've covered quite a bit. I wanted to.
I mean, yeah, it's been an hour.
Yeah, I wanted to see if you had any questions for me. I feel like obviously I'm not as vocal as you are, so sometimes like I can be in a shell. But if you had any curiosities or questions about me, we usually end the show with that. Give the guest a chance to ask me a question or go over anything.
So my question for you is, what do you want people to take away from each episode of Hanging with Hamza?
Good question. So the point of this podcast was basically like a passion project. So I love talking about things I'm passionate about. I think it's the most fun part of my conversations with people is like I love learning and I love learning random things.
Yeah.
And, I've been so lucky to be with Figs and to be in this like influencer market of meeting interesting people such as you. And I think with that being said, all of us have such interesting backgrounds that we've succeeded at or become popular through because of something we're passionate about. And it's all such a niche, unique culture. And so having this podcast has given me a chance to not only have you guys selfishly on to talk with me for an hour, like I can force you to sit down and talk to me, but also along the way I can learn so much about you and what you're passionate about. And like, even with this interaction, I've learned so much about you that I didn't know beforehand. And I obviously I researched a little bit. I asked Xy questions about you because you're somebody that's well regarded in the nursing field. Like everybody knows who you are. They know what you've advocated for. But I feel like there's so many other layers to you, like your sneakerhead background, your cooking. Like there's just so much more that I think adds to your beauty and your overall interest. And so, yeah, this podcast is just my way of unlayering that onion.
Oh, unlayering the
little
onion.
Shrek reference there. No
Hey.
big deal. But yeah, I just love having people like you on, and I'm so proud of you for everything you've accomplished. And
Well, thank you.
for the 5 listeners listening to this,
Just
they're
stop.
gonna love you too. So
Well, hello, listeners.
yeah, and I'm honored.
Thank you for being here.
I'm really grateful you took the time to come out and talk.
Absolutely.
I know you have a busy lifestyle, and it means a lot to me. And
I mean, listen, we're all busy, but again, I support people who are doing things, and you know, I respect it, and I think it's great what you're doing, and I'm down for any of it.
Thanks, Katie.
Woohoo!
Can't wait to come visit you at your next show in New York. Everybody listening, come to
Oh my
Katie's
God. That's
stand-up
5
show.
tickets sold.
Yeah, we're almost sold out.
That's 5 tickets
There
sold.
we got 3 here, so we got
Yep,
8. So
there we
you're-
go.
You're on a good start.
Well,
So,
thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and thanks for coming on the show, and thank you for listening, guys.
We'll see y'all later.
Thanks for hanging out with Hamza. Take care.